Taliban's dark reign, the alarming surge in female suicides in Afghanistan. The takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban in 2001, 2021, has led to a significant surge in female suicides, highlighting the desperation among Afghan women to escape a regime that severely curtails their rights and freedom. Though global trends show more men than women die by suicide, data from 11 surveyed
You got
provinces
you
in
got
Afghanistan.
disconnected from me for a couple of seconds. I don't know if it was for the other people as well, but just in case, can you go back a little bit because I didn't hear. You said curtail. Go.
Oh, um, uh, this highlights the desperation among Afghan women to escape a regime that severely curtails their rights and freedoms. Although global trends show more men than women die by suicide, data from 11 surveyed provinces in Afghanistan, collected privately by health workers and published despite a Taliban ban on sharing up to date statistics, reveals that more women than men have died by suicide or have attempted to take their own lives. This alarming trend is attributed to the Taliban's repressive restrictions on women, increasing forced and underage marriages, and the loss of freedom and hope. While nearly half of the Afghan population already suffered psychological distress due to the country's long history of poverty and conflict, the situation has become particularly acute for women, as evidenced by the fact that in Herat province, a provincial hospital reported about 90% of mental health admissions were, quote, breaking down under the weight of the new restrictions, according to a medic working there. This surge in female suicides has raised concern among human rights activists and UN officials who blame the Taliban's increasing restrictions on women in public life. So, I don't know. I really wanted to highlight this story because I think this is a cost to these restrictions and impingements that is a little bit more hidden. It's not as visible. It's something that isn't, like, directly considered when we hear about all these bans that come down and restrictions by the Taliban, but it's equally important. And in the article that I read by The Guardian, and their researchers and who they were talking to basically talked about how they think that the numbers are already probably much more higher than what they have found so far. Because according to them, in Afghan culture, suicide is seen as extremely, extremely taboo. It's seen as un-Islamic. So if they actually admit that it was a suicide, it's probably only because they need to clarify that this happened so that they don't get accused of murder. So there's probably a lot more that aren't even known about. And it's really, really heartbreaking. The article profiled one particular story of a girl who she was in, like, the hospital when she was interviewed, obviously with a fake name, saying that she attempted, because she was being forced into a marriage with her own cousin who is a heroin addict, and she has no recourse, zero recourse. And if the cousin comes back and tries to claim his right to marry her, she'll do it again. And well, before I go into more detail, Armin, like, just what's your impression of this?
I hate that the first thing that came across my mind was these Muslim Dawa channels constantly trying to use suicide rates and um, more secular countries as a way to suggest that that look what atheism and secularism gets you, right? And these are Daniel Hairaju, for example, is a specifically Muslim YouTuber who defends the Taliban and constantly use suicide rates in Western European countries, for example, to show how Islam is superior. But which is strange. This is a very strange case because usually you have higher suicide rates in countries that are more advanced, not uh, because not because they're having people in more advanced countries are living worse lives, because in general suicide is such a small percentage of a country's problems that they are doing so well in so many other things that even if they have higher suicide rates on average, they are living much better lives. Like this
Oh,
will
that's
be
a
such
really
a
good
small
point. I
dent.
never considered it like that.
Yeah, yeah, because if you look at people's health, people's mental health, all these other things, they're all doing these secular countries are doing so much better in so many other things, and suicide is such a small fraction of the entire problem that the country is dealing with, that even if they're doing so much worse than less developed countries overall, that doesn't mean that people are living worse lives there in those countries. But this is bizarre because Afghanistan is now being hit uh, from both directions. Like it's having it's living people are having much lower standard of life, like much lower quality of life in every aspect, in food, in education, in freedom, in everything, in access to health, in access to entertainment. And they don't even have that advantage of having lower suicide rates, uh, like other less developed countries have. So it just seems like hell on earth. Basically, Afghanistan seems like the Taliban are very committed to making sure that Afghanistan is the worst place to live, especially for women. They are very committed to making that happen. That's what it seems like. Yeah.
Man, I don't know. And the arguments about the lowered suicide rates in these other countries, I question the statistics. I question how much we actually know about those things.
Well, I've read some on it, and there are some experts that suggest that when life gets to a higher standard of living, then you start thinking about certain things more. Do you know what I mean? Like when you are, and again, it's such a small fraction that you shouldn't be like, oh, so we shouldn't have a higher standard of living. This is a very tiny fraction of the problem. But once you have your basic needs met, then your mind starts to wonder about things that it wasn't capable of having the time and energy to think about if you were struggling to live. And that's what causes might again, this is a theory, might suggest mm, provide a reason for why that happens. Like if you start sitting down and thinking about how alone you are, or how much, especially if you don't have anything to blame, because if the country situation is horrible, then you could be angry at something rather than faulting your own for your own
Mm,
problems. You know what I mean? And
hmm.
that makes people sort of sad and depressed about something. But again, these are all theories that people throw around. None of this has been proven. But especially, here's another thing: if a country's situation is bad and it has never experienced a better situation, it's less likely for that country to experience higher suicide rates, because they have never experienced anything better, right? But if a country's situation is bad, but they have experienced better conditions, then because they have something to compare, they had hopes and dreams, and those hopes and dreams have now been crushed, then you could see a higher suicide rates. So, for example, if you compare Afghanistan to to an African country, for example, that is the same level of poverty and lack of access to education and healthcare and all of that, you might see higher suicide rates in Afghanistan because they were given a chance for a better future for women, for education, for prosperity, and they were seeing that opportunity. And now that
Well,
all of
some.
those dreams opportunity, yeah. So and now those dreams and opportunities have been taken away from them. So you might not see higher suicide rates in that African country because they weren't provided that opportunity, and you see that in Afghanistan because there was a glimpse, there was a hope, there was like, this is, do you understand the difference here, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Afghanistan
No, I
had the
do.
opportunity to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Reincarnation Entertainment, thank you for the super chat. Saying Afghan women should seek refuge in the UK, let them in. This sort of thing is why I was talking about open borders, even if we can't have 100% open. Okay. Well, first of all, there are many countries that did have special refugee programs specifically to help Afghans in particular. Canada had, I think, the largest in the world, openly said that they're reserving 40,000 spots just for Afghans. Um, so there are many countries that do have programs to do this kind of thing. I don't specifically know about the UK. Second, I'm sure that there are millions of women and girls and men that would love to seek refuge in the UK from Afghanistan. It's not that simple. It's not that
Mhm.
simple. I don't even know where to begin with articulating the obstacles in doing it. So yeah, they should seek refuge there. I'm sure they would love it. I'm sure that although it would be very difficult, many would still feel very blessed to have the opportunity to like achieve and accomplish that journey. Right? It's not that simple. Um, it yeah, it's it is extremely difficult. It takes the work of teams of people just to bring one person in and make sure that they're allowed to stay. Um, so I would love it if that was an easy option for the people that want it, but it's not.
Right.
It's not. It's not that
And
simple.
um,
So I'm saying that because like I don't know for people that aren't involved in refugee work and case management and have been familiar with cases and doing hands-on work the way I have. I don't know if the average person is aware of what goes into it. I don't blame them if they're not, or what's really involved in the risks that are involved. It's
right.
not as simple, and people like sometimes criticize people for the way that they have to seek refuge or the things that they have to do. This is not a, a black and white like good world. People have to do things that, to survive that they wouldn't have to do. I don't know. I'm going on a tangent now, but
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
I just want to say I am in favor of more refugees being allowed. Okay, but I don't. But it needs to be there needs to be filters. There needs to be strict filters. People need to be checked. I'm not okay with open borders at all. More refugees is good, but more filters is also a good thing. You need to make sure. Also, if you don't have proper filters, then you are risking of shutting down these refugee programs because people are going to have bad experiences in the accepting countries, and they're going to challenge the entirety of the program. So you need to make sure you are doing the proper checks to when you allow somebody in.
I'd be lying if I
Also,
said that there weren't a lot of people that lied on their refugee claims. There are a lot of
right.
people that lie. There are a lot of people that should not be allowed to stay in these countries, and they do through legal loopholes or their horrific past is only discovered long after they were already granted status, and it gets complicated. So there's a lot of the system is messy. It's not. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
The reality of the
Also, Newman
situation is
is
dark.
Newman is using a. We need to move on, Susie. Newman is using the super chat saying, "Please like the stream, guys." Yes, thank you, Newman, for using your super chat to tell people that. Zaid is saying, "Armin, can you say uwu? Should I do an uwu?
Are you going to do an uwu? I would love to see you do an uwu.
I could do an uwu here.
Oh God.
Uwu, wait, uwu is." She didn't like that.
I feel so traumatized right now.
Well, I could do the Vladimir version. Have you seen Vladimir, a YouTuber? Oh, like a manly version. Oh. Have you heard
Wait,
that?
is he
Like,
the guy that is like dresses like an e-girl and then tricks guys into thinking that he's a
yeah, and it
girl?
goes from being feminine. Yeah, it goes from being feminine to being very
I
masculine.
love
And
Vladimir. He's the
it goes like,
best.
oh, he goes like, oh.
Oh my God. When he did that,
Yeah.
I felt something inside of myself like rescind. I felt something like invert
I,
inside of myself. I was like,
I know you hate that. I know you hate that, but I had to do it. Oh, okay. So we got another super chat. We will read it after the next news. Thank you so much, Reincarnation
well,
Entertainment,
no,
for the
let's read it this news because we were just discussing it.
Oh,
It'll make more
oh,
sense.
okay. You read it then.
Thank you for another super chat saying, "Yeah, you can't allow terrorists in. I'm not open borders anymore. You changed my mind." Oh, okay. But
Mhm.
we should
Oh,
allow a
wow.
lot more. Like the stream,
Yes.
guys. Yes, everyone like the stream. And I would
Thank you.
also love to see more people who are deserving be allowed to have safety and security in their life.
Thank you
Because
for
it's
the
really
£5
horrible
super
when
chat.
people who really need it are denied that opportunity.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.